welcome again to the channel. Do you use Microsoft Excel on a daily basis? If so, I'm sure you probably noticed that Microsoft provides hundreds of templates that you can find when creating a new document. Over the years, I only used one of these templates, the Gantt project template, which is well done, but I had to tweak a lot of it to make it usable for my case. Overall, I just think these templates suck, and I tend to not even look at them. But a few days back, I spotted something called the Loan Calculator. Not that I was looking for a template, but because I work with financial models every day, I decided to check it out and see how Microsoft handles timelines, cash flows, and formulas. And the result was just as expected. Completely disappointment. So I had an idea. Why not to create a series on YouTube where I analyze these models and then tell what's good and what works and come back at the end with something better. So I decided to create a series, Excel Makeover, where I will go through Excel files that I find online, that I came across at my work, or that I will receive from you guys, and start making better. So stay tuned for the series, and let's go start working on the loan calculator from Microsoft Office. So to start with, we're gonna get the simple loan calculator on Microsoft templates. Okay, just go to File here, and then just click in More Templates, and search for the loan calculator. And you're going to be able to find it. Just press enter and it's going to show up to you. Okay, so there it is. Click here and click on create. So that's what I have in here. So this is what I have in here, and I already create a new sheet in here where I will just basically do the new loan calculator. So the first thing I see in here that I don't like is that it's not possible to distinguish what is the inputs, what is the outputs, and where the model is calculating everything. Okay, you can assume where those things are, but you cannot clearly see and where it is, and it's not clearly indicated where it is. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. Okay, so if we go through the model, you're going to see that these cells here represent the inputs. Okay, so you can see everything here is hard coded, so which means an input. The dates here, it's a formula, but actually this can be a hard input. Okay, so that's where the inputs are. This is where the outputs of the model are. Okay, so you can see these are all formulas, and they're all coming from the table below here. And of course, the third section of the model is this one here, which is the calculations. Okay, so every single model should have at least 3 sections. Okay, it's the inputs, the calculations, and the outputs. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here in the other sheet. So let me just copy first the inputs and the outputs. And I'm just going to paste these things in here, Alt-S-E-T-V. Okay, so these things are in here. So now I'm just going to make this one here a bit bigger. Okay, and I'm going to just reduce the size of these ones in here. Okay, so now we have our inputs, and this is going to be our outputs. We're going to fix those things later. Okay, so let's going to fix first the inputs. I'm going to write here input. Okay, I'm going to add an extra row here and add the output. Okay, output. So these are our 2 sections, and then we have already to start account for our output. Okay, but I'm going to do this, sorry for the calculations, but I'm going to do this later. Okay, so let's going to do first with the inputs. Okay, so the inputs by default or as best practices, they are always starting with background colors. Okay, and the reason being is because the user, by looking at the background color, particular the one we're going to have in here, can be any color actually, the user will notice that these are the cells where it's necessary to input data. Okay, so for us we can do this by just adding a color. So let's going to add a light pink. We're going to add some borders. Okay, so we're going to add here, let's add let me see here, cold pink can be this one here, and we're going to have outside and inside. Oh, I should have done the font also. Let's add the font here, and we're going to get the same color for font. So this is going to be our styling for the input cell. Okay, so that's what we're going to have. So whenever the user sees this color in here, it's going to mean that it's necessary to give an input. Okay, so let's going to format now the numbers. Okay, because the formatting is not correctly here. So we know this is a date. So press Ctrl+1 in here. We go to number. Let's go to custom. Let's go and scroll down here to dates. Okay, and you can see the dates are in here. Okay, so for dates, you always should format the dates in a way so that you can read in a written format what the month is. Okay, because by doing it, it's much clearer. It's very straight away. It's clear which month you're dealing with. Because if you have a date, for instance, like 1st of April, let me show to you. Let me just format this one here like this first so you can see. Let's say you have a date here, which is going to be 1st or 01/04/23. Okay, so if you read this, depending where you are, you're not sure whether it's the 1st of April or January 4th. Okay, so if you change this, okay, to a written month format, then it's clear to the user which month are you dealing with. So let me delete this one here now. So we have the dates in here. Okay, so this is a percent. Okay, so if I go to my style window, so if I press Alt+2, I have a shortcut in here. So this is percent. Okay, and these two here are numbers. Okay, if I press Alt+2 again, I'm gonna add this as ,0. Okay, so we have formatted everything in here. So our inputs are correct. Okay, so for outputs as of now, okay, we just have like hard-code numbers. Okay, and we're gonna fix these, but we have to have our calculations first. But let me just format it. Okay, for inputs, usually the way I do, I only have a dotted border. Okay, I think that's mostly best practice too. So most likely we'll always see dotted borders for calculations. Okay, because that's essentially what's going to be. We're going to have a formula here that's going to just reference to a cell or making the final calculations for a model. Okay, and that's basically what you need. Okay, so that's going to indicate to you that these are calculations, and this cell styling here is going to be an input. Okay, let me just going to format here now the cell style. So let me come 0. That's wrong. Let me see, ,0, and I'm going to just add 2 more. Okay, and here's going to be ,0. Okay, so that's good. So we have everything here, and now just to finalize here, I just want to increase the size of these titles in here, or sections. Okay, so you know that this is an input, this is an output. Okay, and I'm going to add on top of here, I'm going to put load calculator, and I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Let's see, 18. Okay, and let's going to make it bold. Okay, let's going to add a line here. It's just going to format. Okay, so essentially we have already the blocks for our input. That's basically ready. And we have the blocks for our output. What we need to do in the output or in the results, okay, is just to first make the calculations and then just to reference the calculations to these cells in here. But let's leave for now hardly coded numbers. Now, now let's start dealing with the model itself, okay, where the calculation happens, okay? So let's see what we have in here. So what we have here basically is the model is presented on a vertical way, okay? So every date is in a different row. And this is something that you should never, ever do, okay? Having dates in a vertical row is not the correct way to handle the model. And the main reason being is because every single column here has the same formula, okay? So you don't need to you don't need to have this in a vertical approach because you want to see different calculations on. So let's gonna start dealing with the calculations now, okay? So what do we have here? What we have is basically the model is being calculated vertically, okay? Where every single row has the same calculation. And that's not the way you should do. Whenever you have a model, your model should be presented as such so that each date is in a different column, okay, horizontally. And I'm going to explain to you and I'm going to understand why. So let's going to make this transition first. So first, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to just paste it in here, okay, but I'm going to transpose it, okay. So if you press Alt-ES, and E. Okay, we're going to transpose, and I'm going to just copy the value, so I'm going to transpose it in here. Okay, so that's what we're going to have. So instead of have this as a columns, we're going to have this as a row. And I'm going to put here what calculations. Okay, so this is the third section of our model. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to do it. Okay, so let's try to understand first what the number is. So number basically essentially is the number of periods. Okay, and the way they have here, they have a formula as a formula. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Okay, but let's go and analyze first. Okay, to start with, all the formulas in the model has a if error formula or reference. Okay, and this is by no means how you should model your models. Okay, and why is that? Why should never ever or almost never use if error formulas? Okay, because if you have an error in your model, you want to be able to spot it. Okay, and then you fix it properly. Okay, but if you hide your errors in such a formula here, you will never be able to understand where the error is and what is causing the error. Okay, so this is the first mistake of this model. Okay, the second mistake is that by every single model, you should have in the first calculation the starting date of your model. Okay, so that's going to be the period 0 where you take the money out of the bank. Okay, so that's going to fix these two things. So we're going to come back here to the new loan calculator. Okay, we're going to assume that our dates, this is going to be our first date. Let me just get here first date. Okay, meaning the first period, and our period 0 is going to be in here. Okay, so I'm going to write in here, I'm going to write 0. Okay, because this is our first period, and from here we're going to go, we're going to add 1. Okay, and just basically copy and paste this thing across here. Okay, so you can go, let's go 70, let's go 100 periods. Okay, it doesn't really matter. The thing is that you need to have enough periods that account for the maximum length of the loan. Okay, so I'm assuming here the maximum can be 100. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, so we copied everything, and instead of having this formula here, okay, that even doesn't make any sense, we have a much simpler formula in here. Okay, so you can see it's very easy to understand what's going on here. We are adding 1 period for each one of the periods. Okay, so it's very easy. And now coming back to the template, comes another problem. Okay, it is very difficult to understand what's being calculated. Okay, I'll bet with you that 99% of the people who's watching the video doesn't understand what these references are. Okay, and how this is calculated. Okay, so I'm just going to give an example for you. Okay, every single calculation here in this model is being done through this last argument of the formula. Okay, and what that basically is a built-in formula that that Microsoft did to you. Okay, so basically if you come here to the formula and name manager, you will see that like all these formulas, okay, like for example payment date, if you scroll down here, it is in here, payment date. So it's a formula that is calculated to you, so you never ever should do it. Okay, never ever. You should be able to see the formulas pretty easily. Okay, once you select a cell. Okay, and more to it, even the calculation itself, it's very difficult to understand what's going on here. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this. Okay, we're going to make always simple cells that whenever you click, you understand very quickly what's being calculated. And if your cell gets too big, you have to break it down in several stages. Okay, so that's the best practice. Okay, so let's gonna do now and calculate the payment date. Okay, so the payment date here is like when you're making the first payment. So it's clearly the first period. Okay, so it's the end of the period. Okay, so let's gonna come here and let's put the payment date here. But I'm gonna say here end of the period. Okay, end of the period. Okay, instead of putting the payment date. Why? Because at the end of the period is when you pay your debt. Okay, so and when it's going to be that? Okay, so let's see how they're calculating here. Okay, so you can, if you click here, there's a formula here that calculates beginning balance. Sorry, I'm in the wrong cell here. Payment date, and if you come here again to the, let's go back here and check what's the payment date is. Okay, it's getting a date, getting the year, when the year starts, the month. So it's very complicated. So you don't need all these things. Okay, so let's gonna redo here. Okay, and let's say that our date is going to start when? When's going to be our end date? It's going to be after the end of this month here, right? So it's going to be 1 month after. Okay, so if I'm just gonna reference this cell here. I'm going to just reference it, okay, here. Okay, so what I'm going to say here is that this, sorry, let me just copy this here. I'm going to just copy this here, okay, Alt OCH. Okay, so this is going to be what equals to this, sorry, equals to end of month, the start date, comma 1, okay. So let me just copy now the styling. And what we have here, we already have the first end of the period date, okay. And if now I just copy everything across here, you will see that everything comes correct in a very simple formula. See, I just had to use one formula and 2 arguments, which is very, very simple, okay. So there's nothing in here. Okay, cool. So what we need to do now, we need to add something extra, because as you can see here, the last date we have in our model is 31st of July, 2031. But our load should finish much earlier than this, okay? When we need to calculate for that. So I'm going to add just one extra row in here, and I'm going to say period flag, okay? And what a period flag is just a visual interpretation of when your model should finish, okay? So in this particular case here, we have 6 months, okay? That's the total number of payments, and that's an input. So again, there's another mistake in here. Yes, an input. We have to transfer this up here. Okay, oh, sorry, this is not an input, sorry. This is an output, because this number here is it's 5 times 12. So I got confused because I didn't finish that. Okay, so it's 60 number of payments, right? So that's 60. That's fine. So what we're going to do here, okay, so I'm going to just reference this number here again. So I'm going to check, okay, what I'm going to check? I'm going to say what? Let me start here. So if this number here is equal or lower or equal to this one here, then we're going to return. I don't need to do anything actually, just going to do like this formula, just fix here. So I'm just going to check whether this statement is true. If it's true, it's going to return true. If it's false, it's going to return false, okay? I just have to add an equals here. So there we go, okay? And I'm going to copy this across. But before I copy it across, I just need to anchor properly, okay? And the tip is that whenever anchoring with regards to cell above, you have to press F4 twice. In this case here, I just give a full anchoring. Okay, let me just return here. But whenever anchor to the left, you can press F4 3 times, okay? And now if I copy everything across, okay, you will see that everything's going to be calculated correct, okay? And you will see that the model will essentially return a false after period 61, okay? So here comes another best practice for modeling, okay? As you can see, we have a huge row in here, okay? And we kind of like don't see everything that's happening in the model, okay? So there's 2 things we need to do here, okay? First thing is to freeze your panel just below where you have your flag and under the period number 1. Not period number 0, but period number 1, okay? So how do we do it? We're going to go to View, and then Freeze Panes, okay? And why do you do in this period 1 and not period 0? Because here you're gonna sometimes have information here that you wanna visualize, okay? Particularly with regards to sum of values, okay? And this model here is not so important, okay? But I always recommend you to freeze under period number 1, okay? And now, as you move across your dates, okay, you can still see the main information of the model, and most importantly, you can see what's being calculated because the rows data or inputs are in here, okay? So that's the first tip. The second one is that best practice with the tips that like just hide all the columns after your last number. Okay, actually just leave one blank space. And why is that? Because whenever you're copying, for example, let me just delete this. Okay, let me come here. So if I want to copy this in across, I just have to Control C, Shift Control right, and Shift left, and then very quickly I can copy everything across, okay, without going like thousands of columns to the right, okay? So that's another tip for you, okay? So here I'm just gonna copy the styling here, okay, because this is the styling for reference, okay? So whenever we are making a reference to another cell, we're using this style here. Okay, so every single cell which has a formula, we style this way, with the exception of what's being calculated, okay? Because we know here it's always going to be calculations, okay? So there's no need for us to style it, okay? So that's basically it for the periods calculation, okay? Always have formulas like this, very simple, okay? If you compare this one here with these ones in here, and have a flag, okay? Just one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to style this flag in here, okay? I'm going to do a conditional formatting, just to make that more clear again to the user, okay? By visually telling the user whether something is true or false, okay? So I'm going to put here, I'm going to say if the cell is equals to true, then, oops, sorry, I have to edit. So I'm gonna say, we're gonna fill in with a color. We're gonna say it's gonna be light blue. Sorry, light blue. I'm gonna put dark dotted like this. Okay, I'm gonna have a blue like this, and we're gonna have a font the same. And if it's false, so we're gonna do here, I'm gonna duplicate, and I'm gonna say if it's false, I'm gonna do some different colors. So if it's false, what we're gonna do? We're gonna say it's going to be, let's say, dark. We're gonna put the same color here, and we're gonna fill it out with light and dark. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. So if I press apply here, you can see that everything changed here. Now, as you move along in the model, what you can see is that the color is gonna change. Okay, and the user will see exactly when we stop paying the debt, okay, when you paid everything in full. Okay, so that's it for the timeline. Let's gonna do the calculation now for the beginning balance and end of balance. Okay, let's see how these things are calculated now, okay? Again, the model complicates everything, makes everything much more difficult, okay? Why? First thing, we don't know how this is calculated, okay? When you look here again, there's a formula for the beginning of the balance that's being done that we don't know what it is. And if you want to check what this is, how this is being calculated, we have again to come here to formula, manage, and then I think it was beginning of balance here, okay? Look, you can see it's the future value of a lot of things in here, okay? We're going to make this much easier, okay? The same for everything else, okay? For instance, another thing, the payment is the sum of the principal and the interest, okay? That's what the payment is. And instead of adding those two values together, it just makes another calculation, okay? It's a completely useless calculation. You can avoid it, okay? So you have to always think about simplicity to make things easier to be understood, okay? Another thing, this number here is always equals to the previous one, okay? This one here is equal to the previous one. So you can reference these things back and forth, so there's no need to calculate it, okay? Essentially, what you need to calculate is the principal and the interest, okay? Everything else is just adding up things together, okay? So let's see how to do it. I'm gonna come back here to the calculator, to my calculation, okay? I just want to reduce the number of spaces in here to make it more clear, okay? Let's see, so beginning of balance, okay, so what is our beginning of balance? We don't have a beginning of balance in period 0, okay, but we do have an end of balance in period 0, and what that is? This is the 5,000 that we get, okay? Sorry, this I'm gonna reference with F4. So this is the number in here, okay? We are in period 0, at the end of the period, we're getting 5,000, okay? So that's very simple reference, we can get this there. No need to calculate anything, okay? And as I told you, what's going to be the open balance of the next period is going to be equal to the previous one, right? There's nothing else. Okay, so this is our previous, this is the open balance, okay? The beginning of balance equals to the previous period end of balance, okay? So this is what it is, okay? So let's calculate the other stuff now. We already know that the payment is the sum of the principal plus the interest, okay? So we know this. This is very easy, okay? So let's gonna calculate the interest first, okay? So the interest, we need the To calculate the interest, we need the interest rate. Okay, and what is our interest rate? It's 5%. 5% of what? So it's 5% per year. But here we have a monthly payment, okay? So if we assume that we can spread this 5.5% into 12 different months, so essentially our interest rate is going to be equals what? This number here, okay? Divide by 12. Okay, so this is what our interest should look like, okay? One thing I want to tell you here, so this should be the, this should be percentage per month, okay? One thing that I want to tell you, you should never ever hard-coded numbers in formulas, okay? So this is completely wrong, okay? So what we need to do here, we need just to add here, okay, I can say months. Let me just redo it here. Months in here, okay? So this is going to be a constant, okay? So it's going to be a constant, and this is going to be 12, okay? I'm just going to copy this format in here. I'm going to paste, okay? So that's this is the unit. We're going to fix this later too, okay? So instead of reference hard-encoded, sorry, the number here, we're going to reference this cell in here, okay? Because then again, it's going to be clear to the user why you are dividing this interest rate by 12, okay? Because we're gonna change from a percentage per year to a percentage per month, okay? And we're gonna add this thing here, percentage. This is a percentage per month, okay? Per month. That's what it is, okay? So let's gonna calculate now the interest. Say what's gonna be the interest for the period? It's gonna be how much we owe the bank, okay? I'm pressing for twice here. Multiplied by what? By our interest rate, which is this one here, okay? I'm gonna press F4 3 times in here. So that's what it is. So we got a 22.22. Let's see if it's the same as in here. Yeah, it's the same number in here, okay? That's good. So how do we calculate the principal now, okay? So the principal here is going to be calculated with the PMT formula, okay? So that's what's going to be. Sorry, not the PMT, sorry, this is not correct. So what we have here, as you can see here, for every single period, we get now we need to calculate the other two numbers in here, okay? As I told you, the payment is the sum of the principal plus the interest, okay? But because in this particular example here we are using a constant payment over the time, okay? We need to first calculate the payment and then the principal. Okay, so we calculated the interest here. Now let's go to calculate the principal, okay? So the principal can be calculated with the formula PPMT, okay? And what are the arguments? The rate, okay, the rate per period, okay, which is this one in here, okay, comma, what is this? The period number, okay, which is this one in here. I'm going to press F4 twice, okay. The number of periods, which is this one in here. I'm going to press F4 3 times. And the present value, okay, which is how much money we took in the bank, okay, which is going to be, let me just fix on this number here, okay. The future value is 0, and the type we can just skip it. Let's close the number, and this is the number 72.59, okay. I'm going to multiply by -1 just to keep consistent our schedule, okay, and I'm going to just paste the formats here now. Okay, so that's what it is, 72.59. And if I look here, it's the same number we have. Okay, and now what we need to do is just calculate the payment, the total payment. So I'm going to just Control Z. I'm going to just put in this number in here. Okay, so just skip in here, and the total payment is going to be equals what? Equals sum of these two numbers in here. Okay, so this is the total payment, and I'm just going to delete this. And what is the end of the balance? The end of the balance is going to be this minus the principal. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, and let me just copy and paste EST. So this is how much money we owe the bank right now. Okay, and this is how much we paid. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy everything across. Okay, Control C, Shift Control Right, Shift Left, Enter. Okay, and there's a problem. Let's see what's wrong here. So I do think Control CH. Let's see, everything's fine here. Everything's going fine. So let's see, that's why you should never ever use the if error formula, because if you could put if error and ask it to be 0, then you are not be able to spot what the mistake is. Okay, so the error is here in the transition. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. I think we have to round the numbers. It's 0. Okay, so what's going on here is that the PPMT formula does not work if there is no open balance. Okay, so that's essentially what it is. Oh, I see now I made a mistake. I think I didn't properly calculate here. So okay, I have to proper anchor this number here. What's going on? Let me see, let me fix this. It's correct. Everything seems to be correct. Let's go back there to the transition. So that's why it's important for you to always highlight these things. You want to understand what's going on in the transition. Okay, the problem is right here. Okay, why this is not being calculated? Okay, I see. Just because the period that we are in is just above the period of this period here. Okay, so what we need to do now, we're going to multiply all these results here by this. Let me see if we're going to pause, because if it's false, yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, so we have to have an if statement here. So the thing is, let me just go back here. So we need to check. If this is true, you make the calculation. If it's not true, you just print 0. Okay, so if what? If, oops, sorry. Let's go. So we have to do an if statement. So if what? If this, press support twice. If this is true, then you make the calculation. Otherwise, it's going to be 0. Okay. And that's going to be 0. Okay, that's good. So now just copy and paste across. That's 0. And now I have to copy and paste this across here. Okay. Okay, that's good. So everything's fine here. I just want to copy the same style here. Let me copy. Just want to paste here. Alt EST. And that's fine. Okay. And now I just want to do one thing here. I just want to add a border above here. Okay. So now basically we have fixed everything and we have our schedule already. So if you let me just tell you one more thing also. If you come here to the transition, okay, it is important that you always have formulas across your whole model, okay? Because as you can see here, okay, this is not, let me just wait, AC. So as you can see here, we have the dates, okay, and you have even formulas after the period when we have paid our debt, okay? So we finished paying the 31st of May, March 2028, but we still have the calculations after, okay? It's important that you show all the calculations, okay? So you can see it's clear to the user if you scroll over here and if you go all the way to the end of the model that you have calculations in here, but everything is not being calculated because we are no longer the period of payment for that. We already paid it, okay? So it's clear to the user if it goes all the way to the end of the model, okay? And that the transition happens in here. But if you come here to the model, okay, and you scroll down to the very bottom of the calculations, apparently everything finishes in here, but this is not true, because if you come one row below, you can see there's still calculation in here, okay? So you should never ever do this like in a model, okay? Because if you come here, apparently I can come here, just delete everything, and then my model is completely lost, okay? Everything's gonna be lost. And if you make any change, for example, in the number of periods, if I put increase here for 70, my model is not gonna properly calculate, okay? So you should tell the user, or should be visually available to the user, like all the calculations, okay? You see, like I delete it in here and it's calculating, okay? So this is not best practice. So what you should do is always to add as many rows as you need, add as many columns as you need, make the calculation, and then during your calculation, make sure that these things here go to 0, okay? And then if I change here to 6 here instead, okay, then you can see that the model properly calculates everything, and then on the period 72, everything's changed from true to false, and then everything goes to 0. Okay, so this is the best way to do it. Okay, so that's it. Now I think to finalize, we just need to change these things in here. Okay, so we're gonna go to the monthly payment. Okay, so monthly payment is going to be what? It's going to be, okay, let me just go back here to 5 years so we can have the same result as the model. So the monthly payment is going to be equals to what? It's going to be equals to this number here, because they're all the same, doesn't really matter where you get it. Okay, number of payments is going to be what? It's going to be 5 times 12. Okay, total interest. So okay, I have to do one more thing here. So what I like to do also is to always sum, whenever possible, okay, whenever makes sense, to sum the numbers in the columns. Okay, so we can sum here, and it gives us 5,000, which is correct. Okay, that's how much money we paid. So we need to pay the principal is this number here. Okay, and I will highlight this to be a, let's see, it's going to be a light gray. Okay, so light gray like this, and full boards. Okay, so let's select this. And I'm going to copy this below by pressing Ctrl D. Okay, so you can see here that how much principal, which should be equals to the total amount of the loan, and how much interest. Okay, and that's what's being calculated here. So I'm going to press equals to this. Okay, and then the total cost of loan is going to be what? It's going to be the sum. Sorry, it's going to be equals to the sum of these two numbers in here. Okay. Oops, sorry. I just have to, let me just change one thing here. So this is wrong. This should be in here, equals to the sum of these two numbers in here. Okay. Okay, so that's basically the model. Okay, I hope this is much clearer, okay, to you, what is a good model and what is a bad model. And I hope you have learned something. But just before to finalize, there's one more thing that I forgot here. We also have to add, to make like financial finishes. Okay, for example, here it's a formula, so it should have the same styling as this one in here. Okay, so let me just copy the style first. Alt the ST, but this is a percent, so let me put a percent in here, so that's correct. And last, okay, one thing that I forgot to mention, like we should always have units in our model. Okay, always for every single row. And we're gonna add the units in here. Okay, we're gonna make it a bit more lighter. Okay, so let's gonna do, it's too light, let me go a bit darker. Let's go for this one here. Okay, so what is this? This is a loan amount, so this is currency, this is USD, this is a percentage per annum. Okay, so we're going to put like this. This is just a number. This is a date. This is a constant, which is basically a number. Okay, so this is the US dollars. This is a number. Okay, USD. So this is, let me just copy this here. This is a number. This is a number. This is USD. This is, I'm going to change, instead of percentage per month, it's going to be percentage per period. Okay, it's a slight difference, but it's clear that like this is every single column is a period, so that's why it's 4.6. What if we were to have here not a month but a quarter? Okay, so that's important to mention that this is the interest per period, okay? This is USD and this is USD, okay? So I think now the model is ready. I just want to add one column here and add loan calculator. Okay, I want to format this. Again, just format. I'm going to add 18. I'm going to do like this. Okay, so that's everything for now. I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please just ask me in the comments below. And most importantly, if you have any Excel file that you would like me to take a look and to comment for you and make it better, please just send it to me. Hope you have enjoyed. Have a nice day and see you soon.